The Vino Geek Podcast, wine from a Kiwi perspective. So for years, New Zealand has been a country that produces world-class Sauvignon Blanc. But what's the next thing? This has been the thing for years. Sure, we've dabbled with Pinot Noir, but other places in the world does excellent Pinot Noir. Chardonnay, again, everyone does great Chardonnay. Pinot Gris, but that doesn't really sort of fire. Merlot hasn't really done it. What is it? Yeah, that's what we're discussing this week, is what is the next best thing, a big thing, and is it as easy as just picking some great variety or wine style and it becoming the next best thing? Is it just as easy as that? Is it just as easy saying, oh yeah, Albarino will be the next big thing? Or is there more to it than that? Is there another hurdle, like our conservatism when it comes to wine? Is that a big sticking point? I kind of think it is. And this is what we need to change.
When it comes to travel, experience matters. Book with the A-Team, Amanda and Anna from King Travel. With a combined 25 years in the industry, we'll look after your holiday from start to finish. Join us this August for Adelaide Uncorked, our hosted wine journey with Amanda and Caleb King. Think Barossa Valley, McLaren Vale, long lunches and premium tastings. Experiences you'd find hard to access on your own, all in a relaxed, small group with an optional Kangaroo Island add-on. Book local, book with confidence. Go to kingtravel.co.nz.
So as I said in the intro, there is, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Merlot, Pinot Gris. These are all done well, but is it something that is, as we approach international markets, we can actually do something with? For me, not really. And, why is that? Well, because as I said, other places in the world do these as well, if not better, than New Zealand. We aren't we're not producing something so totally new and so totally different with these grape varieties that make people think, oh, we should drink this now. Not like Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. They hit the market, they hit the world scene and exploded because it was something totally new, totally different, just totally unique, and people wanted a piece of that. What's the next best thing? Big thing? Good question. The biggest hurdle that I see, and this is something that I have discussed in a previous episode, is around, it's very much a Kiwi thing, but I would say it spreads throughout the world, just in different capacities. So domestically in New Zealand, we categorize wines based on the core grape varieties that New Zealand was built on. There's Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Gris, Pinot Noir, Merlot, and then Australian Shiraz. Now, that doesn't even feature Syrah, which we do try to do. I'm talking about Australian Shiraz. If it doesn't meet that expectation, then what is it? And I feel like this is the issue when we're looking for that next big thing. What is the next big thing? Well, that's hard to find because people want everything to be quantified and based around those core grape varieties. That if it doesn't fit into that, what is it? It doesn't exist. So how is the market going to catch on and see that as being a wine to get involved with, to drink, to support, to purchase? And this extends internationally. These regions of the world that are known for these styles. How are we supposed to take that market, if we're not doing something so totally different? And this is the issue we have, is that, when you look at, obviously we do Sauvignon Blanc as good as anywhere in the world, if not better. Chardonnay, well, Australia does amazing Chardonnay. So does America, a very different style, but still very, very good style. And then there's obviously France, and I'm not going through every country, but Burgundy is the home, so they're going to do it well. So competing against these ones, when Sauvignon Blanc hit the market, there was only Loire. There was nothing else that was standing up and saying, "Look at me." So that's a big factor in why Sauvignon Blanc took off. Pinot Noir, which we also are doing well, but the US does Pinot Noir well. Australia does Pinot Noir well, in the cooler areas. And then obviously Burgundy in France, the home of Pinot Noir, does Pinot Noir very well. And then there's, Germanic Pinot Noir. There is Italian Pinot Noir even. There is Pinot Noir is produced widely, and so that's also a factor that we're fighting against. So those are probably the next two big things. And then Pinot Gris is, is it Pinot Gris? Is it Pinot Grigio? This is what the international market sort of struggles with. And so, but then while it does have character, it doesn't have character at the same time. It's not like it doesn't have a massively defining thing and says, this is Pinot Gris. Its defining character is the fact that it's so. It's not here nor there. It's not this, not that. That's probably its defining character. And so how is that going to take the market? Because there's nothing that's really going to grab people about it apart from the fact that it's okay. So that doesn't work. Okay. Albarino is something that I touched on and looks like it grows very well here. But then how much market did Albarino have to begin with? It was only produced really in Galicia and Spain until New Zealand really got a hold of it as well. And New Zealand still hasn't really got a hold of it. But when you look at Albarino, it is very similar to Sauvignon Blanc. It's going to hit in the exact same market as Sauvignon Blanc. So all it's going to do is cannibalize the Sauvignon Blanc sales. So is that really something that's worth getting behind? Probably not. What's next? There's talk of Chenin Blanc. Wow. Again, another one. South Africa does Chenin Blanc very well. And obviously France does. So where to? It's not a big market and it's not really, so next, because again, Chenin Blanc, when we talk about it in a Kiwi perspective, it sort of sits between a Chardonnay and a Sauvignon Blanc. It's got that freshness and acidity and zestiness of a Sauvignon Blanc, but it's got the texture and body of a Chardonnay. Okay, what is it? And is that the same issue that it faces internationally? What is it? It's neither here nor there. So that's the thing, like, what is that next big thing? We look at reds, Syrah. Well, if you listen to the episode the other week about Syrah, it hasn't really captured the market, not even domestically, because of the mere fact that New Zealand, and for the most part, the world knows Shiraz. Knows Australian Shiraz, and it is dominated by Australian Shiraz. That Kiwi Syrah, what is it? It's not a Pinot Noir, but it's not Shiraz. So where does it sit? And that's the thing. Like, all of these varieties are hinged on where they sit in the market. What are they like, as opposed to just being appreciated for what they are? And this is the biggest hurdle. I've been racking my brain around this episode about what would be the next great thing in New Zealand. And then I really had to think hard and thought, is there something? Is there something we as a country could hang our hat on next as a style that we could really take to market and really own. And that's the issue, is that what is there? Grape varieties wise, I think there isn't anything. I think what we need to do is look at, nailing down styles. This is something, the New World does not focus on is style. We focus on the variety and making the variety sing instead of making a style. France is known for the styles of wine. It's not known for the grape varieties. Bordeaux is Bordeaux. Burgundy is Burgundy. It's not, oh yeah, Bordeaux is a Merlot Cabernet, sure, or Cabernet Merlot, sure, that's what it is. Burgundy is Pinot Noir if it's a red, or Chardonnay if it's a white. It's not about that. It's about, this is a Burgundy, this is a Bordeaux, and or going further, this is a Saint-Emilion or Médoc, this is a Gevrey Chambertin, this is a from the Macon. It's not about grape variety, it's about the regional style. And is this where we should be heading? And I kind of think it is. I think that this is where New Zealand should be heading. We should be focusing more on regional styles and nailing regional stylistic wines rather than, and region-centric, rather than just trying to do a lolly scramble and trying to make whatever stick and whatever works. We need to work out what we can really do and really nail that. So part 2, if you like, of this episode, styles, wine styles. What should we be looking to hang our hats on? And I mean, first off, we, in Hawke's Bay, for instance, they do reds, and they do reds well. For me, one super underrated red from Hawke's Bay is Malbec. We really don't embrace it as much as I think we should. And I feel it should be the cornerstone of the red production in Hawke's Bay, that not making straight Malbec, not taking on Mendoza, but making Malbec dominant blends, using that as the backbone and then fleshing it out with the Cabernet, the Merlot, the Cabernet Franc, the Syrah. There's plenty of Syrah in Hawke's Bay. Flesh it out with that. Add some Viognier to the mix. Really boost that fruit. Really get that juiciness really driving through, because you add 2% Viognier to a red and it really punches through that fruit. It really hypes it up. And Malbec ripens all the time in Hawke's Bay. Very rarely does it not ripen. These other varieties can struggle from time to time, so why not embrace this and get around it and really drive home that Malbec blend, and nailing Malbec blends with a touch of this, with a touch of that, and make that the hallmark of Hawke's Bay. Make that what Hawke's Bay is about. Chardonnay again, make seriously good Chardonnay. Happy days. Sure, in the cooler parts of Hawke's Bay, do your little niche things like doing Pinot Noir and Gamay Noir and these things, but the workhorse for Hawke's Bay, for me, should be Malbec dominant blends. Let's embrace it, let's get around and let's do it, because no one's doing Malbec dominant blends. And if you can do it very well, if you can grow really, really good Malbec and really market it, give it a bit more Cabernet in certain vintages, give it more plushness with the Merlot, hit it with some Viognier just to lift it and give it more aromatic and juicy, punchy fruit and vibrancy. Do these things, add Cabernet Franc to lift the perfume aromatics and what have you. Frame it around Malbec and just really drive home Malbec, instead of just trying to do all these different individual grape varieties and doing that. Just nail Malbec and really own Malbec and pump the Malbec blend to the world. Let Mendoza do Malbec straight up. Let Bordeaux do the Bordeaux blends. Let the hotter countries like Australia and America do their big Cabernets. Turn it around and focus on Malbec, which does so well in Hawke's Bay and is super underrated. As much as I love Syrah is not working. Malbec should be something that get behind it, something that it's not hard to convert people to. It's not hard to convince a Merlot drinker that they should just drink Malbec. It's virtually the easiest thing to do because it is quite similar, but it's just tasty. It's really delicious. And that's the thing. You're not getting as much of the green fruit flavors. You're not getting under-ripeness. Things are ripening all the time, And then, embellish it with the other varieties that you already have. Don't make those redundant and just let it happen. And then and that's the workhorse. And then these producers, if they love Cabernet, they can make that straight Cabernet from time to time. They can do this, they can do that, but focusing on that Malbec blend. And each producer can have their own style of Malbec blend, and that's a regional style. Obviously, Marlborough, focusing on Sauvignon Blanc, nail Sauvignon Blanc, play with the other whites on the side, and have Pinot Noir there. Again, although the issue I have with Pinot Noir in Marlborough is that as much as it's great, there is some rubbish that comes out of Marlborough, and that lets the side down. And there's also the fact that Central Otago is such a juggernaut that it's so hard to compete with it. So, this could be a slightly defeatist attitude, but at the end of the day, I think we're mature enough as a country now to start refining what we're producing in which regions, instead of this lolly scramble that's not really working, and we're trying to find the next great thing instead of focusing in on things that work. Let's focus in on things that work and make them work better. Let's not try and find the next great thing. Let's just make things work better, because obviously things aren't working that well because we're still leaving a lot of grapes on vines. This is obviously an international issue, is that people aren't buying as much wine anymore. We need to work out why, and we need to change why. It could be that my idea of doing a Malbec dominant blend is still old hat, that there needs to be a more modern take again on what we do and how we do things and why we do it. Instead of just making the best wine we can from the grapes we have, we need to start looking at, let's make the best selling product we can make with the grapes that we grow. Slight shift in mentality in order to meet market demand. Maybe that's what we have to do. I'm not sure. All I know is that what we're doing right now, the lolly scramble, trying to grow 20 different grape varieties in one vineyard and thinking that that's a good thing, that we have diversity. It is nice, but it's not working. It does not work. We are too small to have a lolly scramble because it just dilutes the product. We can't hone it in and make one great product when we're trying to make 20 different products. We need to learn from the old world and how the old world does things, how they only have a couple of different styles. That's it. They know that those work, so stick to your knitting. This is what we need to learn in New Zealand as far as traditional grape growing is concerned, but there is a greater issue about people aren't drinking traditional styles of wine. We need to adapt, otherwise we'll die.
When it comes to travel, experience matters. Book with the A-Team, Amanda and Anna from King Travel. With a combined 25 years in the industry, we'll look after your holiday from start to finish. Join us this August for Adelaide Uncorked, our hosted wine journey with Amanda and Caleb King. Think Barossa Valley, McLaren Vale, long lunches and premium tastings. Experiences you'd find hard to access on your own, all in a relaxed, small group with an optional Kangaroo Island add-on. Book local, book with confidence. Go to kingtravel.co.nz.
Now, for the wine of the week, I have picked a wine that's unfortunately not available right this moment, but it sort of embraces this whole thing of new, doing something new with the old instead of trying to reinvent do something totally new. They're just taking what's old and making it new again. So this is Soho, their Mata sparkling or method. It is made from Merlot and Syrah. Totally new blend, great, but really innovative, really different. And this is utilizing Waiheke Island fruit in a different way. It's not just settling for, okay, this is what you do, you make a red wine out of these. No, why not? Why not make a bubbles? Yeah. So it is a rosé, if you like, because it is the smoky salmon pink, really cool color, really different and unique. On the nose, it's pure strawberry, there's cherry, there's herb, a little bit of spice. The palate was super balanced and smooth. So again, this is something I tried a while back. I actually had a visit from the winemaker and we went through the wines, and I really enjoyed this because it's just different. And the key thing when I get to the palate, I'll be talking about it, the big thing that stood out to me was the structural difference between a sparkling, a method made from Merlot and Syrah versus your traditional Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. The structure of the palate was very different, very cool and very interesting, and something that could be a real winner as far as getting new drinkers, getting different drinking habits going with different wines, So it was balanced with smooth fruit, slightly creamy. The acidity was low, and that's what I mean. It wasn't that super freshness. It was rounded and soft and quite moorish, the palate, because there was the herb and the spice and the pepper kicked in just to lift that finish too, which was really different too. You don't normally get a peppery note from bubbles, and that's what it was, this lift of pepper, and it just gives it something new, an extra dimension, and all the while we had, instead of it being the acidity that gives it the structure, it was more the plushness, the roundness that gave it the structure, and then there was a lift. Really cool, different wine, really cool, and how it was structured and how it is framed. And you can imagine what this wine would go with. You think, things like seafood, richer seafood, the red seafoods, because it is a rosé, but it's got more to it. Maybe something with a little bit of spice, because it does have a little bit of spice of its own. And it has that rounder, softer palate, which would help ease the whole clash with the spice instead of that fresh acidity. When scoring this wine, it was a difficult thing, because it's a new style, it's not something you've got a framework and you go, okay, yeah, tick, 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 tick. Oh, this is different. It doesn't fit the mold. Okay, so we have to shift gears and think slightly different. And so it's a difficult one to score, but I really enjoyed it. I really found it well executed, not gimmicky at all, really serious style of wine, but very different. And for that, I'm giving it a 93 out of 100. I think just it had all the elements of something really good and really different. So it has to get a very high score because it's delicious. It's a really well-made wine, really seriously good wine. Okay, so that wraps up our episode of what comes next. What is the next big thing? That's harder to quantify than it should be, really. But it's just the reality of how things are right now and how things are sort of trending right now. That we can't just rely on what we're doing. We have to change things. We can't just look for the next best grape variety. We have to start thinking a little bit more outside the box, whether that's looking at regional wine styles as opposed to just growing a lolly scramble, or thinking outside the box with traditional wines and making them a little bit different, likes of the Mara method with using Merlot and Syrah instead of using your traditional Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Whatever the case is, we need to adapt and we need to make it work, because we need to find the next best thing, because we can't just rely on Sauvignon Blanc. So yeah, that's all we have this week. Thank you as always for joining us. Sante Borak.